So good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled Public Facilities Committee meeting on Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. My name is Allison Leary, City Councilor at Large from Ward 1 and Chair of the committee. And with me this evening on time, Councilor David Kalis at Large from Ward 8, Councilor Andrea Kelly at Large from Ward 3, and Councilor Deborah Crossley at Large from Ward 5. I just want to remind the committee that this evening we are having a joint meeting, and when our public hearings are done, just the 4 public hearings this evening, we're going to join the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. So we'll get off this meeting and go to their link to discuss, have a discussion on snow clearing operations and enforcement. So let's get started. Our items scheduled for discussion this evening are all public hearings. There's 4 of them. So I am going to ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, from Councilor Kayla. So our first item is 301-23, and this is Catherine Adams, attorney for Mark Kempton LLC at 275 Grove Street, petitioning for the extension of the city's water main from Washington Street approximately 620 feet in a north-northwesterly direction, connecting to the existing main in Dunstan Street. And the petitioner is to pay the entire cost. So I know that Ms. Adams is here. Would you like to introduce this item, Ms. Adams?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Catherine Brocker Adams, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the petitioner, Mark Development. I'm joined by Mark Development's project manager, Scott Lombardi, as well as Jeff Ketteritz, our civil engineer from VHB. And as you noted, we're here for a request for an extension of the water main located on Washington Street, adjacent to the intersection of Washington Street and Dunstan Street, to accommodate the mixed-use residential project approved by the ZBA in Comprehensive Permit 09-19-2, known as Dunstan East. And the plan has been reviewed and approved by the city's engineering department, and we're all available for any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to look to see if there are any questions from the committee. I see Councilor Laredo. And by the way, let me just say that we're joined by Councilor Mark Laredo, Councilor Emily Norton, and Councilor Vicky Danberg.
And Madam Chair, I'm going to have to duck out for a bit, and I will be back when my item is done.
Okay, just a reminder, we have a joint meeting after these public hearings. We'll be joining public safety.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So who currently owns this project?
Mark Development.
And is there an agreement to sell to someone else?
I am not at liberty to discuss that.
So I presume the answer, Ms. Adams, is yes, it is. And if so, why are we proceeding on this since the project is currently stalled?
Catherine, if you want, I can take that one. This is Scott Lombardi
Sure.
from Mark Development. So there are plans to, it's currently stalled. There's a good likelihood that we will be selling it. We do have a tentative agreement in place, and we would like to build this, whether it's Mark Development, the current owner, or the party that we're talking to potentially buy the property from us. We do have plans to build it, and the plan that's been permitted and approved, and we would like to get the water main extension approved as part of that.
Is the water main extension required to be done before you start construction?
It is not.
All right. So my view, colleagues, is I see absolutely no reason for us to be taking this up at this time. If and when there's a new owner of this property, let them come in here. We're going to see if they actually go forward with the project as proposed or not. But I'm not prepared to support this at this time.
Councilor Laredo, may I ask what your thoughts are on this? Why?
Yeah, I think we ought to hold the item till we see who the new owner is and let them come in. Why are we approving digging up the public way for a project that's stalled when they don't need this done for months or months or months? Makes no sense to me. If they were underway doing their work, I would routinely approve this. But the idea that we're permitting something to an entity that has admitted that it's in the process of selling to someone else, and they may change their plans, and meanwhile we've dug up the public way or approved something, I think that's a huge mistake. I would ask that we hold the item.
Okay, well, I'm going to hear from other members of the committee. Counselor Kelly.
Thank you. So this is in my ward and I'm on the community liaison committee for this project, which met yesterday. By the time I signed on, the meeting was over. But what I understand is happening here is that there is a new buyer who wants to proceed as soon as possible, which is honestly in everyone's best interest, because this sort of pit in the ground blight to the neighborhood, which I hear no end of complaint about, the sooner we can move forward. I don't have a problem with us voting on this tonight because there is a current owner and the current owner is Mark Development and they want to get this project moving forward as was originally designed and agreed by the council, is from what I understand. Scott, you can correct me if I'm saying anything wrong or out of turn, but I think that moving forward with this water project is a helpful thing for the city. So I will be making a motion and I will be voting in favor of it. Thanks.
Councilor Kelly, if you don't mind if I just add to that, and maybe I should have said it when I spoke earlier, but we did apply for a building permit, which is currently being reviewed. It's already gone through the engineering department, and the city engineer did request that we request this extension formally through the city council and public facilities. So that's why we did we have pushed to expedite this process.
Excellent point. Thank you for making it, Scott.
Can I respond? I'm sorry, there's others with questions. I'll wait.
Allison, you're muted.
Yeah, I was in a busy spot, so I wanted everyone to hear it. Counselor Crossley has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't see any reason to be unnecessarily hostile to the people who are trying to get this project rolling. We know, I'm very glad to hear from Councilor Kelly on the liaison committee, but also we know that the current owner, developer, really wanted to build this project. They do have a permit for the project and that permit stands and runs with the property. So I have also heard from people I know in West Newton who are very eager to see this move forward. And what does it matter whether Mark Development does this piece of work or the likely potential new owner. So we all also know, or should by now, that we're not out of the economic upheaval that the country has experienced due to COVID and that have caused huge and sudden spikes and instability in the construction industry, spikes in costs, supply chain issues and so forth, and that investors have pulled back. So we're seeing this across the city. Developments are either proceeding very slowly, as we also heard last night, or for the time being, not at all, they're rethinking. At least this one is going forward as planned. So I also am prepared to vote on this, and I'm very happy to hear that the liaison committee is on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Crossley. Councilor Kalis?
Thank you, Councilor Leary. I'm a little concerned about this because I hear what Councilor Laredo is saying. I mean, if we dig up the road and then it is not sold or is in limbo, then you're doing that you're digging up a public way with no real knowledge that it's gonna come to fruition. Now, if there was an agreement in place, I guess I'd be more comfortable with that. Councilor Kelly, you said it would be helpful to do this. Did you say that because this water main is a requirement to finishing the project? And no matter whether it's Mark or anybody else, it's a requirement, so it's going to be done at some point anyway? That's for you.
Yeah, I'm going to actually pass it to Scott, but my part of the answer is my understanding is this is definitely moving forward. It will have to be done. And the sooner it gets done, the sooner they can break ground and get moving on this project. So Scott, why don't you give the more thorough answer? I can't speak on behalf of Mark Development, which you and Catherine perhaps can.
Yes, let's
Sure.
hear from Mr. Lombardi.
Thank you. Yeah, I should definitely clarify that in the normal course of construction, this will not be something that happens first. This will happen after foundation excavation. It will happen after the project is well underway. So it's not something that we have to do in advance or would want to do in advance and then walk away from. It will happen, through the normal phasing of how we work this construction project. It'll happen in the middle of construction, multiple months into the project. So we're asking for permission to do this work as part of the larger development, not something that has to happen before the development begins. It's actually a loop that runs through the site, not necessarily an extension beyond the site. Don't know if that helped clarify it or not, but it's not something that's done up front. This is something that will happen well into the construction process.
Ms. Counselor, can I continue? I
Yes,
find that I'm sorry that I'm going back and forth, but I find that answer confusing because if it's not something that happens up front, why are you requesting it before doing any work or before selling it and that buyer doing the work that typically happens?
Simply because it was asked of us by the city. The engineering department requested that we request this through public facilities as part of our building permit approval.
Right, but as part of the building permit approval, but isn't that it sounds to me that what they're thinking is that this is going to eventually have to be done, so you should get the approval to do it. Whether you do it now or you wait until the construction starts, I guess, is the question. And it seems like you would wait till the construction starts, whether it's Mark or somebody else, to make sure the plans are finalized.
Yeah, so we're actively pursuing the full building permit right now. We've formally submitted everything to the building department, and this was one of the conditions. So as part of our building permit application that we fully intend to get, that we need to get, that we want to get, this is one of the conditions of that building permit. So that's why the timing was right now to request this through your team.
Okay, so just one more question. So you're not necessarily going to do the work, but you just want the approval so you can move this ahead?
Yes, that's a better way of saying it. Thank you.
I was just going to ask you to state that more clearly. It's not that they're going to dig the street up now. They just need the approval to move forward with the building.
Thank you.
I was wondering, Mr. Lombardi, what is the advantage for you asking this right now? And I'm just wondering what the engineering department is thinking. How is it? Is it just more convenient, or are you trying to move this project along at a quicker pace? When do you actually intend to break ground for the actual building?
I don't have a firm answer as to when we'd actually break ground. As soon as this year, though, October, November, the very near future potentially, and that's why we're actively pursuing that full building permit.
Okay, I see Councilor Rado has a hand up.
I do, Madam Chair. I'm still more than a little bit puzzled by this. Mr. Lombardi, which company are you with?
I'm with Mark Development.
All right, I just heard a minute ago that Mark Development's in the process of selling the property, correct?
That's correct.
So when you say you're going to break ground, it's not Mark Development who's going to break ground, is it?
Potentially not.
Okay,
Yep.
so let's be very clear here who's breaking ground and who's not. And I appreciate my colleagues saying, well, we're just granting this, no problem. Once we grant the approval, we can't take it back. So we have no control over when they do it. They're telling us when they're going to do it. But I don't see any reason whatsoever when we have a new owner coming in for us to be granting this permit. I just don't. And I'm glad we're going to finally get this project underway. I don't know what this particular developer's issues are, but it's not confined to this project, as we all know. And this particular developer has multiple projects in the city, at least one other significant one that's sitting right now completely stalled. I'm glad they're going to sell the property to someone else, but you have zero guarantee that purchaser is going to go forward as planned. I just don't see this. And I would, at the very least, urge us to wait till there's a new developer in place. They're not going to get held up from getting a building permit here. I haven't heard anybody actually say that. We've done a lot of these projects before. And we grant location all the time, and they're not usually done at this stage. So I'm not prepared to vote for it. If it's the will of my colleagues, so be it. I won't vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Councilor Laredo, is there any additional information that would help you make a decision for this to go forward? Like, do you want to know who the other developer?
It's,
Yeah.
you know, it's all good and fine. In my world, I do a lot of deals, okay? And just because someone has signed a letter of intent or even a purchase and sale agreement doesn't mean that the deal will go through. And so for us to sit here and say, well, they're selling it and the sellers are going to do exactly what we were going to do, you have zero assurance about that. I mean, zero.
Well, we're pretty sure something's going to be built there and everybody needs water.
Something will get built there, I hope, because there's a big hole in the ground that's been sitting
Exactly.
there for a year.
Exactly.
But I'm not prepared to vote for this when this developer is in the process of actively selling it, told us they're actively selling it. Let's see the new person come in. Let's have them come before us. Let's make sure they're going to do the project as planned, and then we proceed. But to grant a grant of location, which gives them an absolute right to do whatever they want, I think is a mistake. Thank you.
I'm gonna recognize Councilor Norton, who hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll go back through the group. And if take your hand down if you don't want to speak for a third time, or okay. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can see that maybe this would make the project more attractive to the buyer, smooth some things out of the way. We're a known quantity with Mark Development, and the city council is not with this new. So maybe it's something like that makes it more attractive for this transaction to take place. But I am sympathetic to the points that Councilor Laredo is making, that I would really rather be dealing with whoever is actually going to be building the project and moving ahead with it. So I don't plan to support it at this time either. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Kelly. And then Councilor Crossley.
Thanks. Just a quick, I'm wondering, would it be helpful to the committee, particularly say to Councilors Laredo and Norton, if we understood why this request came from the engineering department? I see John Daglian on. I don't want to put you on the spot, John, but is that something that you could address to explain to us why the city is actually the one who put this request for this water main extension to come to us at this stage of things?
Sure. Our position was, because this was a comprehensive permit, one of the conditions were, if I remember correctly, that prior to getting a building permit, the easement for the water main extension was to be granted to the city. The contractor would install the water main at their cost, and that's why we had pursued this avenue.
Thank you.
We were not involved with the sales or anything like that. We don't know anything about that.
Councilor Kelly, did you have any other questions?
No, I'm set, but I see Deb Crossley's invisible hand
Yes.
raised. Okay.
I see her too. Councilor Crossley.
Visible? Okay.
It is harder to see.
All right. So what I'm hearing makes sense to me, because I do very small projects in Newton, but you have to check all the boxes required before you can have your building permit available. It doesn't mean the street's going to be torn up. You're not allowed to do any construction until you have your building permit. And in the case of special permits, which I'm familiar with, but comprehensive permits are similar in that there are conditions. You have to satisfy all the conditions required by the special permit or the comprehensive permit and be able to check all of those boxes as complete and approved before you can get your building permit. So it takes a long time today, even for small stuff on residential properties, to acquire that permit. If it has to go through engineering, they can have up to 30 days. And then it goes to ISD to plan review, and they may have up to 30 days. And that's a lot of time. So it makes sense to me that Mark Development, in its negotiations with whomever, is advancing that process because they've done all this work. They have their construction documents and they're trying to check all of those boxes. So the permit is ready. I have no problem with this because the permit, it's very clear what the conditions on the permit are. It's going to either be built as the comprehensive permit allowed, or it's not going to be built and it has to go back through the process. So I think it's clear to me the intention here is to sell it as a package, construction documents done and ready for building permit with all the boxes checked off, so that if there's a new entity building it, they're ready to go and build the project that was approved. It doesn't matter to me who that is because, you know, it's the project that was intended to be built, and we're not going to see disruption in the street until until they get the permit. So to me, this is a very much a pro forma thing. You know, we're required to approve the grant of location by the comprehensive permit. It doesn't, there's nothing here that is scary or where something could go wrong. It's either going to get built or it's not going to get built according to the comprehensive permit conditions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crossley. Mr. Lombardi, would you like to comment? I see your hand is up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add one more point of clarity is that this work will be covered under the full building permit. So we will not be authorized to proceed with this until we pay a pretty substantial fee. We have to pay all of our mitigation fees that are tied to building permit. We'll have to pay the building permit fee. So there's really no risk of this happening early, right? Unless somebody has full intentions to build a project that as permitted for, you know, with a pretty substantial payments to be made. That gives anyone any more security to understand that this won't happen unless the project is well underway.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Councillor Kalis, I see you have your hand up.
I do. I feel like Councillor Crossley was acting as Nancy Drew in this mystery, and I just don't understand why, Mr. Lombardi, you just didn't come out with all of the information so we could understand it. It just seems like we have to peel back the onion here for some reason. It seems to be making more sense as we peel for me, but it's just making me very uncomfortable the way this is unfolding. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, that point is taken. I will say that, I mean, what I've heard from Councillor Crossley and Councillor Kelly makes sense to me. Time is money. I would really like to see this hole in the ground filled in. It doesn't appear to me that this is any risk to the city or to the public or any public inconvenience. I think that I'm in favor of granting this request. I'm not particularly worried or concerned. It's as explained, this is still going to be covered. It's a comprehensive permit. It's going to have to go through all the hoops that every project goes through. The way it was explained to me makes sense. And Councillor Kalis, to your point, I think more information right up front would have been more helpful. Just say that to the petitioner. Mr. Dagley, and I see your hand is up.
Yeah, just for clarification, what's being asked of the council is the acceptance of the grant of an easement through their property and the water main extension. It's not a grant. It's not a grant of location. So they're looking to have the city accept the water main easement and the extension of the water main through their property being looped from Washington Street to Dunstan Street. Just for clarity.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, I think we're at the end of our discussion and it's time to make a decision. Is there, I heard a motion to approve from Councillor Kelly, I thought earlier on. Is that correct, Councillor Kelly?
If I only implied that I would make that motion, but I would be happy to make that motion. Is there a public hearing on this? Do you?
Yes, there is. And let me, I opened the public hearing. So is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this? Please go to reactions and print and raise your hand or wave, and we'll look for you. I am not seeing any hands up. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 I,
The public hearing is closed. So this is gonna be a split vote on here, so, I would like us to be more together on this, and that's why I'd be willing to have it considered on second call if there was any more information that would be helpful to committee members who, and I'm particularly Laredo, Kalis, and Norton, who seem to be not sure about this. But if that's not the case, I think we should just vote, because it seems like we've gotten the information that we need, and if I'm wrong, please let me know.
How's Chair Leary? I think we should just vote, and if we can decide to place it on second call and discuss it then.
Fine, let's do that then. Okay, so, Councilor Kelly, would you like to formally make a motion to approve, since this is in your ward?
Yes, I would. And if it goes to second call, I suggest that it be presented with more clarity to the full council than it was to us tonight.
Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. So it's myself.
Do you want to do hands or not?
Yeah, raise your hand if you're an aye. So it's myself. I'm gonna raise my hand too.
3.
3 in favor. Okay, we'll lower our hands. All those, anyone opposed, please raise your hand. I'm only seeing one hand for a nay. So any abstentions? I'm seeing 2 abstentions. So 3 in favor, 1 nay, and 2 abstentions. Okay. So it does pass. And I am in a room where if I
Thank
move around, the lights turn off. So, okay. I also want to say, I want to have in-person meetings. So I'm going to be in person at every meeting, even if I'm the only one here. Okay, so that was longer than I thought. So we're going to go on to our second item. This is 30223.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Adams.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lombardi. 30223. This is Comcast, Astound, Crown Castle, TTC Systems, and Verizon on behalf of Northland. Petition for a grant of location for installing underground telecommunications, conduit, and infrastructure crossing Needham Street to serve the Newton Northland development and neighboring community. Okay. Who is going to be presenting this item? I'm really not sure.
This is good evening. This is Manny Furtado from Comcast.
Okay, hi, Mr. Furtado. How are you?
Can't hear him
Yes,
very well.
Could you speak into your microphone or turn up your sound a little bit?
Sure. Hold on
Thank
one
you.
second. Right, can you hear me any better?
No,
Maybe a little louder. I can hear you okay, but turn up your sound a little more.
Right at 100% here.
Okay, that's fine.
Please just speak loudly.
There we go. I'm gonna scream. There we go.
Please go ahead.
All right, so let me just pull up my, I too like personal meetings, these Zoom meetings that are so impersonal. So this is Comcast in correspondence with RCN, Crown Castle, AT&T, basically to install underground telecommunications conduit and infrastructure crossing Needham Street to serve the Newton Northern development and neighboring community. Benefits to the city would include the removal of current installed overhead wires. Yes, you heard me correctly. The moving of overhead wires to underground on Needham and surrounding streets. And installing them underground, work would be completed prior to the final finished repaving of Needham Street as part of the current work being performed by Mass DOT. Work is projected to commence July 10th of 2023, which we've started the process, and be completed by October 13th, 2023, which is the Needham Street project. You're required, and then there is an attached to this plan if you wish to see it. So in basic language, Northland Development, in accordance with their permit to build the complex on the corner of Oak and Needham Street, has required or requested Comcast and other providers to place all of their aerial cables to within a certain limit. I'm not going to say every single utility pole because there's some things that cannot go down due to electric, but place everything underground from Christina and Oak all the way up to Tower Road. So that section right there, we will be placing underground conduits for the communications, and we would be placing our aerial cables underground and eventually removing the aerial cables from that location. This is one phase of.
Could I ask you a question? Are we supposed to, are you supposed to be sharing a screen or are you just describing to us?
No, I'm just describing.
Okay.
Just
wanted to make
describing.
sure. Okay.
Yeah, the screen is about 8 pages long. That's why it's kind of tough to push through, but I can share them if you need me to. So basically, this goes from Oak Street to Tower Road. That's the first phase. And the reason that's the first phase is we have a state DOT project working there, and we want to get those conduits in the ground before they do final paving of Needham Street. Once those conduits in the ground, they'll sit there for a while we finish off Oak, Christina, and then the side streets, Charlemont, and a few of the other side streets there. Once we place all of those underground, ultimately, all the communications will go underground for those areas, except for a couple of locations as identified on the design plans. That's the basic of this project. This phase one of this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilor Crossley, I see your hand is up.
Yes. So I'm thrilled we're getting to this point, especially along Needham Street. I do have a couple of questions. I am aware of a couple things. One is, my understanding anyway, is that the wires going underground along Needham Street are not under Needham Street unless something has changed. They are actually on the Northland property. And the reason was, anyway, that the documents describing things already in the ground under Needham Street left no room for these things. So at best, they're under the sidewalk, is my understanding, but I thought actually Northland was creating an easement on their property for a good portion of that. Of course, not all of it.
Yes.
You are going to have to get under Needham Street to cross the street. Is that correct?
You are absolutely correct. We are not trenching the entire street. There's no room there to even put a pencil in the ground at this point. So what these are the crossings that go from Tower Road across Needham over to Charlemont, across to 300 Needham Street, which is a business that's there. These are all the crossings that are needed to get across Needham Street so that the state can continue their project and we're not tearing up a brand new road at a future date. That's why that piece that you're talking about that will go through the development will happen off of Oak Street between Oak and Tower Road, the back of Tower Road by the antenna.
Yeah.
That piece there won't be a granted location because it's on private property, but the piece where it goes onto Oak Street and down Christina will be represented to you in a granted location once we're ready with those designs.
Yeah.
This one here is strictly to get across Needham so that we can get that work completed before the state finishes.
Right. That makes perfect sense to me. And that is how I understood it. I just wanted to make sure everything was still like that.
Correct.
And I'm glad you're coordinating so closely with the state work on Needham Street. The second thing is, it actually only recently became clear to me that some of the poles on Needham Street are only for street lights, which I believe are in the state right of way, which is then being granted to the city. And there was nothing in the board order for the special permit that discussed alternative streetlights in the right of way, which is now owned by the state and will be owned by the city. So this is really not a question for you, Mr. Furtado. actually, you have a longer name, but I can't see your last name. Oh, Comcast, never mind,
Yep.
Mr. Furtado.
Mhm.
I see it now. Rather, there's some money coming with this project, and I think what we might want to think about in public facilities is using some of that money to get rid of the poles that are only there for the streetlights, so that the roadway, which is going to be significantly beautified and more accessible as a result of taking down most of the poles, will result in a coherent design along the entire road of right of way, which I think we can't get the state to do. And Mr. Furtado, if you have any comment on that, or if our engineering department is still here, I don't see anybody.
That's right. So what you're saying is again correct. I cannot work on anything or any utility poles that are not under my control. In other words, we're attached to. So there are a few utility poles on one side of the street that have street lights on them.
Yes.
They do not fall under my jurisdiction. They would fall under electrical or the city. I am aware of them. I know which ones they are, simply because I've been looking at the plans for Northland Properties to make sure we're in conjunction with them and also with the state. So I'm aware of them. So yes, you're correct. Not all utility poles will come down. The ones that have streetlights on them will have to stay, and that'll be managed with somebody else or by the grant location through state and through Northland Properties.
So, were there 4 of them?
If I'm not mistaken, it's 4. I don't have them directly in front of me. Yes, it's
Okay.
basically 4 right along the front of what used to be the piano building there. That section is where I remember them.
Along
on-
Needham Street.
Yeah, along Needham Street, but on that piano side of the building is what I'm
Yes,
aware
yeah,
of.
on the Northland side.
Correct.
So I really just wanted us as the city council to be aware of this, because I think it's something, there's millions of dollars of mitigation funds associated with this project. And I'm not sure that the state is paying any attention as it does Needham Street to putting in streetlights. I just don't know. And when the last time we did a tour of the site, Kent Gonzalez was just pointing this out to me and not aware of the state picking it up. So I thought possibly this is something we might want to do with our mitigation funds when that comes to our attention. Otherwise, I think it's great you're moving along. I know it seems like the Northland site is moving along very slowly. It is slower than we expected, but there's a huge amount of work underground. So, thank you for this.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I just want to quickly say 2 positive things that I'm really happy to see in this request. One is the undergrounding of the lines, which this committee and the full council have been hoping and asking for years. And the other is the coordination with DOT for the paving, so that you can do it in conjunction and not have to tear something back up again. So bravo on those 2 fronts. That's
Yes. Very impressive coordination, and I know I'm very pleased with seeing the utilities undergrounded and fewer poles on the street. Is there any other member of the committee that has questions or comments on this item? If not, Councillor Crossley, I believe this is in your ward.
It is, and do we require
Oh, we require a
hearing
public
on this?
hearing.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this? If so, please go to reactions and click on raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands up. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
motion to approve from Councillor Crossley. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any abstentions? Any nays? Okay, that's unanimous. Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Furtado.
Thank you. I'm very happy that we're able to get some of these conduits in the ground and get these cables lowered. It's
Yes,
been many years of discussing this, so we're finally getting there.
yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You all have a great evening.
Yes, thank you, you as well. We have just a couple more items, still all public hearings, so this is 30323 Cambridge Network Solutions petition for a grant application to install underground conduit for fiber installation, which includes picking up proposed fiber running along Chestnut Street from a newly installed pole at 116 on the north side of Boylston Street, and then beneath both the east and westbound lanes of Boylston Street, which of course is Route 9. This run will then terminate at a newly placed pole riser just south of Boylston Street. The fiber conduit will be run approximately 252 feet and will then be run north and south of the utility poles in an aerial fashion. Okay, is there someone who is going to be presenting this item?
Good evening. My name is Keenan Brin. I'm here on behalf of Network Building and Construction. We represent the applicant, Cambridge Network Solutions, for this grant location application. I'm joined by Mr. Jeff Harrington from Cambridge Network Solutions. This is a request for a fiber trench across Route 9 along Chestnut Street. We do have a state permit for the Route 9 construction as well, and we received a written approval from the engineering director and the DPW director with conditions for this particular installation. Jeff and I will be happy to handle any questions you may have regarding scheduling and the actual construction.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Harrington, I see your hand is up. Did you have anything additional to add?
Yes, I apologize for finding the unmute button. Thank you for allowing us to present this to the team. I know everybody's very tired and wants to continue to move on. My name is Jeff Harrington, 120 Church Street, Wilmington, Mass. I work directly for Cambridge Network Solutions, and the purpose of this, as we requested, is to place a conduit across that pathway. It's combined with Mass DOT and the Newton to allow a fiber optic cable to pass through the conduit. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. So let me see, is there any member of the committee that has a question? Councillor Crossley, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is also in my neighborhood.
Ward 5 night tonight in public facilities?
I guess but I only have learned about this from this agenda. I just want to note, first of all, there's no backup material in the agenda. We're all very familiar with the Northland project and what the requirements are for that, but not this. And can you north side of Boylston Street, beneath both the east, can you describe how this work is going to proceed across Route 9? I see the engineering department again back, John Daglian. Maybe this is a question for the engineering department. How does this get managed crossing Route 9 and I assume digging up the street on both sides? You're on mute, Mr. Daglian.
Sorry about that. So as the applicant indicated, they do have a Mass DOT permit to dig underneath the bridge itself and also within the layout of Route 9. The one concern that we had was that the plan they had submitted did not reflect the gas main that was installed this past spring. So we're requesting that before they go for a final approval of the street opening permit, that the site plan be updated to reflect the location of the new gas main that was installed in the spring of this year, and also the proximity of the water main. In my memo, if you look on page 3, it does show a photograph of the area underneath the bridge.
I'm not seeing a memo or anything in the packet beyond the first item.
Okay, I know it was
Is that a problem with what, that was my really confusion, because I look at the maps and things and I have the agenda, I have the first item.
Does the clerk have the ability to pull up my memo and share that?
Hi, my name is Dan Corning. I'm the engineer of record for NBNC, working with Cambridge Network Solutions. I can share my screen that shows the plan that is approved, that was brought up to the DPW, and it is taking care of identifying the newly installed gas main as well, if that would help.
I
Right.
can make sure the engineering department's concerns are satisfied and then I guess I understand you have a permit but from DOT, but
Correct.
are you,
So
how do you cross?
so I,
That's what I want to know.
so I think the answer, hopefully that I can clarify, and I think it's valid because we have those same concerns. So the DOT, based on my experience, the DOT is going to issue their permit, which they have with their specific requirements of the dates and times of what we can work, whether it's day or nighttime. John and his team or the engineering team or the DPW will issue their permit. So the first thing will be to review those two documents and see how they may jive or not jive, right? If there's going to be any conflicts and work those conflicts out. The second thing is the DOT has very specific notices that we have to send out to traffic departments, notifications to the police, fire, different things to let them know when we'll be out there. The third thing is we'll work with the local police department because all that put together, any of the best plans you do, unless you actually go out there and see how traffic flows and see how it's going to be impacted. So usually the first day, Mrs. Crossley is just to sort of get out there and understand how traffic's going to flow and then work with it. The expectation is that you're not going to have the first day being a lot. You try to sort of understand how that's going to go, understand that you're going to work outside of school buses, letting those get to and from where they need to get to. And then as you start to progress, slowly but surely, we're only planning to open up about 100 or so feet a day. So that's a small gap. And then generally what we'll also do, I'm going a little backwards, I apologize. What we'll also do is dig what's called a test pit. So John brought up an excellent point from the city. We want to make sure that we don't impact any existing utilities. So just because things are marked out in a certain way with the dig safe, we also want to make sure that our infrastructure, we want to stay a minimum of 12 inches away. So we'll do what's called test pits, which are little square holes to identify where those are, and then develop what we call good running line so that we know we have a good path. What we don't want to do is excavate the public right away 30 feet and then realize, oh, that's not going to work, and then go back, right? That doesn't help anybody. We're there longer, we're tying up traffic more, and we're affecting the roadway. So my plan of attack is we dig what's called test pits, we put together a good running line, we understand the first couple of days of how the path's going to go, and then we dig the trench. And honestly, Newton's traffic is just as intricate as Cambridge and Boston that we work in every day. And I certainly understand that because what I don't want to do is be shut down. Clearly, we have 2 petitions in front of you, and we'd like to do more work with this cable coming into town.
Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds like you're in charge on the ground,
Yeah.
and it's always good to have the person in front of us who's in charge on the ground. And I appreciate that. Please understand the only thing I have in my packet online is the docket item itself. So
Yeah.
as carefully as I was trying to follow the description of how this is working, I think what I heard now is that the conduit for this is going to be installed. Did I hear this right? Under the bridge, and then it's going to be trenched up Route 9, going westbound.
It is crossing across, so it's going under the bridge and going on Chestnut. So essentially, if you drive Chestnut, as you know better than I, there is no pole line. The pole line sort of ends. We're going underneath Route 9 to pick Chestnut Street back up
So
again.
when you say under the bridge, are you actually attaching it to the underside of the bridge? No, you're digging the street as you cross.
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are in this area. I live in this area too. You'll be going right by Circuit Avenue. I'm 4 houses in. We are very used to having Route 9 dug up, and we don't, it's not been a happy experience. I did not know that the gas company actually, in the last round of digging the road up, they've been digging it up for 12 years, to repair it over and over and over again, that they now have a new gas line. Is that true, Mr. Daglian? There is actually a new gas main in Route 9, that we won't see that dug up again?
That's the correct answer, yes.
Great. That's actually good news, and I can placate people's unhappiness about the road being dug up again by saying that, or knowing that. I hope, so, or hearing that at least, and saying that's my understanding. It would be helpful to have a map. So Mr. Cudmore, if you could refresh the backup material on the agenda before we had full council on this, that would just be really helpful. Otherwise, I'm prepared to move it.
Yeah, and just for clarification, Councilor Crossley, the backup material is in the agenda and the link underneath each item. It will go to the OpenGov page with all the documents the petitioner sent. I can send those to you as well.
Actually printed, that's not familiar to me.
Yeah, that seems to be a totally new way of doing things, because I also was concerned about not having any visual materials or maps that came with it. But Mr. Daglian, you've seen the maps and
Okay,
they
well,
are
now. This is helpful. Sorry,
Yes,
I had no idea it
we have
was
seen the
there.
maps. We have seen.
I
the
can
maps.
share my screen as well too if everybody wants to take a look.
It's actually really, it's not the map is that I'm opening to. There's only one link and it's not detailed. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
Dan, can you share your map for the council?
Sure. Yep. Everybody see my screen?
Yeah, that's not in my packet and that's not on the link.
Sure. So, like Jeff had described, so this is the Route 9 overhead. So we're not digging on Route 9. It's really just we're going underneath it. So our permit with them is just because it's we are within their state highway limits. That's why we have their approval to work underneath them. We're not impacting traffic on Route 9. Our digging is just on Chestnut Street in Newton. So as we described and Ms. Leary read from the beginning, we start from a polarizer on here and then we trench and come down about 250 feet and then come back down to another riser on this pole and then continue south from here and north from this pole as well. And Mr. Daglin had mentioned earlier, wanted to have the new gas line incorporated. So we did incorporate that in our latest plans that have been uploaded to the portal as well for everyone to review.
That's a different section of gas main. That's not coming from the pedestrian bridge along Route 9. That's going, this is totally clarifying. I had no idea this is what you were talking about.
That's understandable.
Very helpful to have this map. And just keep note that this is something that we should have in the packet so that we can see this ahead of time.
And it should go in the report, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is essential to understanding what you're doing. Thank you.
Totally.
Okay. So is everyone satisfied with the map? Can Mr. Corning stop sharing his screen at this point? Okay. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item? If so, please go to reactions. You can click on the raise hand. I'm not seeing any hands up or any member of the public here. So could I get a motion to close the public hearing on this item?
So moved.
Okay. So Councilor Crossley, this is in your ward. Do you have any
move
further
approval, but I'm wondering, so the next petition is connected to this petition, is that correct?
Correct. They're both in on Chestnut Street in Newton as well, but they're not. I'm sorry, I'm talking
They're
over.
not connected?
They're not connected. They're both part of Cambridge Network Solutions on Chestnut Street, just further down the road. Or I think this one's more north.
All right, if they're not connected, then I'll move approval on this one.
Sure.
Okay, so Councilor Crossley has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? Okay, that passes. We'll go on to our last item for public hearing. This is 30423 Cambridge Network Solutions petition for a grant of location to install approximately 190 feet of underground conduit from utility pole number 8592 and extend southerly about 190 feet to another utility pole 8594. The proposed alignment is near the westerly gutter line of Chestnut Street that received a hot in place overlay last construction season.
Madam Chair, may I ask that we start by looking at the map?
Yes, please, let's do that. Yep.
Dan, if you may. So, Madam Chair, if I may, Jeff Harrington, Cambridge
Yeah.
Network Solutions. This similar sort of type of construction, there's a railroad bridge that you're more familiar with than we are. We did propose to potentially try to attach the poles and go over or sort of slightly under as other communication providers have. The utilities have asked us not to. They cannot raise the poles any higher. I don't think anybody really in this room wants to add more poles or higher poles. So what the proposal we saw fit was to try to install a new underground conduit that will allow the cable to pass under the obstruction of the railroad bridge and then come up on either side of the railroad bridge. Similar sort of idea is that we would have approval, assuming approval from you folks, we would call in a dig safe, establish a running line, adhere to the requirements of the DPW, hire police. This particular location is just all Newton, so we would hire Newton Police. We have been working with Newton Police. We do have an account with Newton Police, and we are up to date with our billings of Newton Police. And then we work within the timelines allotted by the DPW. We'd also understand the process of what's out there, and if we need to start a little later or earlier, depending on how we feel traffic will flow, we'll do that, and then we'll restore the roadway to the city of DPW's requirements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harrington. I think you can stop sharing the screen unless,
Could you wait a second, please?
sure, okay, yeah.
Could you please point out on this map where 743 Chestnut Street is?
I believe it's the 749. I think it's 49 is right there. And
Oh, so I just saw Larchmont, so now I know where I am. Okay, so Larchmont comes into Chestnut. So yeah, you are going up a newly paved section of Chestnut Street. So you're going to be repaving curb to curb.
Yep, that's understandable, and for the record, I will state it, it will be done.
And so you said some words about this, but please clarify. Crossing the MBTA right of way involves what?
So we're not, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna be going underneath it, very
Yeah.
similar to sort of the underneath of the Route 9. What I referred to the MBTA is we tried to go overhead, as you'll see some of the power lines do, or going underneath the bridge, sort of at an aerial underneath, if you will, just above the sidewalk, but there was essentially no room. So what we decided was it made better sense to just dig a new conduit underneath the bridge and not have to add larger poles on either side. And honestly, the power company during our walkout stated that they would not set those larger poles.
Okay. And obviously you're coordinating with the MBTA. Does this involve coordination with our engineering department as well, or how does that, because you're partly on city property and partly on MBTA?
So this document's gone through those departments, as well as I mentioned, the pole owners on either side, to make sure that we have permission to install a riser. That you show, when I say riser, how we're gonna come up and down the poles. And this was sort of the last piece to say, before we bring it to your attention, we want to make sure everybody else is on board with that. That doesn't mean that you have to be. That just means that we try to sort of dot all those T's and, cross all those T's and dot those I's before we come to you folks and ask to dig up a street.
Okay.
Similarly to what we did with the Mass DOT, we sort of went to them first to make sure they were going to be okay before we came to you folks. And that doesn't mean anyone's more important than the other. It's just, we're trying to come to you with everything in hand, so we can answer that question as a yes.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Crossley. So I guess we can stop sharing this map then, unless any other member of the committee needs more time. Okay, so that way I can see everybody. Okay, are there any other members of the committee that have questions? I'm not seeing any hands up right now. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item? Please go to reactions and raise your hand. I am not seeing any member of the public who wishes to speak, so could I get a motion to close the public hearing? Thank you, Councillor Crossley. Councillor Crossley has moved to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Harrington, Mr. Corning.
Want a motion to approve?
Yes, just what, Mr. Harrington, do you have a question? Your hand is up. Or one more comment or anything?
No, I apologize. I should have waited for the vote. I just, as you mentioned, I am boots on the street and not an attorney. Could you take a moment, and I don't want to drag this out, what would be if approved where the other one was, what is the next phase? Did I hear you mentioned there is another meeting to?
It goes in front of the full city council. So, so each committee, they'll see the vote, and then it goes to the full, they get the meeting minutes, they look it over, and it needs to be approved by all 24 members of the city. Well, it has to be a majority vote. And usually if something comes out of committee with a good with most members in favor, or we've gotten consensus, it usually means it will also pass the city council. It's possible that it could be put on second call for further discussion, but usually it does pass, but we can keep you appraised of that.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the education. Sorry to jump on a process. My
No
apologies.
no worries at all. So
Move
yes,
approval, but before I do, I also want to make sure the map is attached to the report.
yeah, to the report, the meeting, and Evan, could you please make sure that we have the maps for all the members of the committee to see?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I didn't introduce Evan Cudmore, our city clerk for public facilities. So thank you very much, Evan. So there is a motion by Councillor Crossley to approve this item. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any abstentions or any nays? Okay, so this part of our meeting is completed, and we are going to be joining public facilities and public safety now. So we'll end this meeting and you can log on to public safety and transportation. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night. See you in a little bit.